know what it's like to walk down the school halls or downtown streets surrounded by a generation full of unstable teens who are hurting constantly inside? Who cut and harm themselves, starve themselves, and take drugs just to feel good, even when that only helps for a short time? Because even living in a small town of around just 20,000 people, I'm surrounded by these mentally unstable peers day and night. Maybe some people just do it to be cool or fit in, but I know so many people who have done so many bad things just to take a break from the weight of life and society. While some people may be doing it to be cool, many do it because they feel they have no other choice. No resources that they can reach out to for help, and no that they can talk to ask for help. One of my best friends was addicted to cough drops last year in 8th grade. I know what you may be thinking. Cough drops? That's not a real addiction. But it is. She would steal cough drops from everyone who had them, even faking trips to the nurse just to get a single one. She would become aggressive and verbally abusive to anyone who tried to stop her, including me, and no one could stop her. She gained weight, became nauseous all the time, and was so emotional, all because of the cough drops. She did all of this just because she was stressed out from school and she wanted a break from it all. Yet, the drama was way worse after, and the cough drops provided the opposite effect she was wanting. While she did stop eventually, because she became aware and scared, the damage was done, and she was never really the same. She still loves cough drops, and will take one any time one is offered, yet I try to make sure she doesn't. And this is the thing. I have to make sure that she doesn't get addicted again. I have to make sure that she is okay, and I have to make sure that she stays out of trouble, which is no thing that a teenager should have to do or worry about. Yet the thing that scares me the most is the fact that it may only be cough drops now, yet in 10 or 20 years, it could be cocaine or some other invasive drugs such as that, which I won't be around to help her or watch over her. And while my friend may not be addicted to hard drugs yet, many teens are and don't have resources or people to talk to for help. And without a viable resource for teens to talk to get help, the problem continues and gets worse. According to the National Center for Drug Abuse, by the time a teenager is in 12th grade, 46.6% of all American teens have tried or used illicit drugs, which is 20 million teens. And for adults between the ages of 18 to 25 in America, 11.89 million of them took illicit drugs just in the last month. Yet worse of all, according to the CDC, in 2021, 1,808 adolescents and teens overdosed and died from drugs, which is only increasing year by year. And without an actual resource for people to get help from, the numbers will just continue to increase shockingly high, in which no teen will be safe. When someone gets addicted to drugs, vape, cigarettes, or alcohol even, they will most likely peer pressure more people to get addicted until the chain continues until there is no one else to spread it to. It's like a virus in which no one can escape unless resources such as rehab are provided. And while addiction and smoking affects so many teens worldwide, another large issue within mental health is eating disorders. At the end of 8th grade and beginning of 9th, one of my old friends developed a harmful eating disorder and fear of foods known as cybophobia, which means that they were scared to overeat food, so therefore they didn't eat food. This is obviously very dangerous for so many reasons, and so many people cannot overcome it and suffer from the weight of the world. My friend would act and feel very tired, aggressive, sad, and depressed all the time, and almost nothing that we could do would get them to eat. The only time they would even pick up food would be during the good moments, the sudden hour at midnight where they would feel okay. The only reason that this was happening to them was the pressure given by society to be perfect, and they felt they couldn't match that, so they starved themselves. Throughout the day, they would become more and more aggressive and upset because they were so hungry, yet the weight of society pushing down on them to be perfect overpowered their pain. It hurt me so bad to see my friend in pain constantly, yet nothing anyone could do or say would help, and usually anything we did would only make it worse. It was this problem between me trying to help that ended our relationship. Me, as well as everyone else, was constantly worried about them, yet it only got worse. They would cut themselves, starve themselves, and do anything it would take just to get that hour of happiness. While we are no longer friends, I'm very happy that they beat their eating disorder and that they are now able to stand up to the world. But while they were able to beat their ED, many people aren't and are forced to suffer from it forever. According to the ANAD, 9% of all Americans will eventually develop an eating disorder in their lifetimes, or 28.8 million Americans. Eating disorders are the second most deadly mental illness, right behind opioid overdoses. And every year, 10,200 people die directly from eating disorders, which means that every 52 minutes, one person dies from an eating disorder. People with eating disorders often have a very hard time with their mental life, and they have a very hard time coping and taking care of themselves. People not only die from EDs directly, though, but 26% of all people with eating disorders attempt suicide, or 7.8 million yearly. While there is a direct correlation between eating disorders and suicide and suicidal thoughts aren't only caused by eating disorders. When my sister was in 9th grade, she felt as though the world would be a better place without her living in it. COVID-19 had just begun, and we were living in a place where we had no friends. We were alone most of the time. My sister had just started at a new school, and it first really started when she just couldn't feel motivated to do anything but sit in her bed. She didn't want to go to school, which at the time we were all virtual. She barely did any of her schoolwork, and she was just depressed all the time. She was obsessed with the idea of mortality. Not at an extreme level where she was planning her own death, but she resorted to cutting her wrists and ankles to feel good. She would stay up till early morning imagining her own death, drowning in her depression. She did this all because she felt alone, and like there was no point in living, and there was nothing that she could do about it except for hurt herself. My parents didn't understand what was wrong with her, and they would get upset at her constantly, only making the issue worse. She was always scared to stand up to them, so she kept it inside for a long, long time. Luckily, one day she became aware of the beauty and shortness of life, and she realized that there is only one life that you can live, so she should live it to the fullest. 3 years later, she's doing amazing and hasn't had any more suicidal thoughts since then. She still gets fits of depression here and there, but she now realizes that though life can suck sometimes, it's very valuable and worth living. However, while she was able to realize this, many people aren't able to, and unfortunately end their lives because of the pressure put on them. According to the CDC, in 2020, the same year my sister felt this way, in America there were 12.2 million adults who were seriously considering suicide, 3.2 million adults who had made a plan for their own death, 1.2 million adults who attempted suicide, and 45,979 adults who were successful. Which means that in 2020, every 11 minutes, one person died from suicide. The reason that all of this happens too is because people are too scared to talk about it, and therefore they don't get themselves the help that they desperately need. Millions of people die across the globe from mental illnesses every year, and even more suffer daily. Most of these issues of mental health occur through teens in middle school through high school, where they are stressed the most. Yet, while mental health issues are worse in teens, there are so few resources available for them, letting the number affected grow concerningly high. Many older generations think that we are just dramatic and attention-seeking, but we're not, and many teens all over the world desperately need rehab and other resources to stay healthy and alive. And the first step in that is realizing the need for it. Teens cannot support other teens forever, and the ones in desperate circumstances call desperately for viable resources. The only way to keep our teens alive is to provide help, and until we realize that, the more and more people will suffer from their mental health forever.